What's up, everyone? Jeff, just getting ready to launch a new episode of the Second Chance podcast. And this one's going to be with Ken Cox. And Ken started drinking alcohol around the age of 3. Grew up in bar setting, and just lived a very, very crazy life, influenced by a lot of alcohol. He now has found sobriety and has just an amazing story. He's got a book that's coming out. Um, this episode should be dropping a few days before his book comes out. So make sure you check the show notes because he was giving away the book, and then he's got some incentives to sign up for. Alcohol is absolutely a destructive um, influence inside of a lot of people's lives. And folks need to hear this episode because Ken's a living proof that no matter where you are, you can start over and you can make a difference and you can change. So share it. If you're not going to share any of my other episodes, you all know someone who is struggling with alcohol and abusing alcohol more than they should. And they need to hear it. And they need to hear that there's help and there's hope on the other side. Maybe connecting them with Ken because he's such an easy listen, funny, works on some comedy as well. Maybe Ken will help make that difference in their life. Hope it helps. Let me know what you think. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting. I'll see you guys soon. Welcome back to the Second Chance podcast with Jeff Robertson. Today we have an inspiring guest, Ken Cox. Ken is an author, entrepreneur, and recovery advocate who's no stranger to life's toughest battles. After overcoming addiction and a series of life-altering challenges, Ken has dedicated himself to helping others find their path to recovery and growth. His new book, Reclaim Sobriety, The 12 Rounds of Sobriety, provides actionable strategies to help individuals reclaim their lives. Today, he's here to share his journey, insights, and what it truly means to rebuild from the ground up. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited to meet you and learn more about you. Tell me, I've read, but tell me, what was the turning point that led you to reclaim your journey or your sobriety and start your journey to recovery?
I think that, like a lot of people, there's not a one moment that fixes everything for you in your life, but I can say that there's two significant moments in my life that I'll talk about that helped turn that page drastically. The first one was my diagnosis of liver disease.
Mm.
Uh, I I
Oh
got
boy.
liver disease, horrible situation. I'm happy to tell that story as well. But so with that got me on my first, okay, you have to quit drinking. I was 39, 40 years old roughly. Uh, was successful at quitting drinking, right? Angry, mad, happy, struggling the whole time. Talk my doctor back into moderation once my counts get back into good stuff, right? So, and then I tried this moderation thing for a couple of years, right? So
Yeah.
liver disease wasn't enough for me to say I'm done, right? It was enough for me to be angry about it. I want my thing back on. I want to feel normal again. All those things. Big struggle, huge struggle. In that process, I bought a boxing gym because
There
I
you go.
knew about the only thing that was keeping me alive at that time, you know, as shitty as it is, right? I got a beautiful wife, I got two amazing children, but about the only thing that could keep me going was going to the boxing gym and doing that at that
Yeah.
time. I knew that it wasn't being ran very well. I by operating data centers and building websites for 20 years for people, you kind of see when a company's running well and when it's not, and some things that you do. And I'm like, man, this gym's going to go away. So I ended up buying it so that I have a place to go and make sure that it stayed. Um, Fast forward several years, still not happy, still having this I'm going to moderate world, right? I can handle this, I can manage it. And if you've ever been a dad addict, you know what that looks like. It's, you can go 2 or 3 days, I'll have the 2 beers after dinner or something.
Yeah.
And then a week goes and then a Friday night happens and, you're back in a clubhouse with the boys after the bar closes and roughhousing again, right? So all those things happen, problems after problems with the relationships and everything else. I was on my way home from Podfest a couple years ago in Florida, and I got into Georgia, and I didn't know about the super speeder tickets that they have in Georgia.
Yeah.
Uh, and I got pulled over, and one thing led to another, and I get arrested for felony possession of marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm a medical cannabis user, and I had my medical cannabis with me, and I get arrested for that on felony. I get booked. It's 2 weeks until my trial and all that stuff, and luckily I finagled my way out because in our country, money does buy you just about anything, and it got me out of that night. So I spent the night in jail. I got out, and I went and I bought 2 beers, and I started drinking. 2 tall boys. And I started, and something happened. I don't know what it was. I'm like, this can't be me anymore. And I dumped them out, and everything, the way that I looked at alcohol from that moment on, and I didn't get arrested for alcohol that day, right?
Yeah.
I got arrested for something completely different, but that was my go-to. Like, oh, I just got out of this bad thing, and I get to have this. This is the way I kind of looked at it, and I set it to the side. Now, why I think that happened, right? What was that shift inside of me was as I owned this boxing school, and I had to teach these kids. I'd figure out a way, and I didn't want to do this. I mean, they made me figure it out, right? Was to take these kids up, 12-year-old boys and girls off the street
Yeah.
that are scared of everything, and teach them how to get into a boxing ring and compete, right? That was my task for the past several years. So one of the things that I did is I came up with these core values for these kids, and we read them every single day out loud and proud, right? We talk about them regularly. And I went through high flow cognitive school to learn how to teach these kids. So I'm certified flow coach. I'm certified breathing exercise coach now, right? I've got all these different coaching certificates. And what I realized was that I needed a coach to get me through the other side of addiction. I didn't need a group or any of those other things. I really needed to coach myself. And I didn't know that I was coaching these kids. I was coaching myself is what I was doing. And I instilled those core values that I was teaching these kids. I said it every day to them. I instilled them into myself, and that my actions were conflicting with my values, and it didn't feel right. So taking everything that I know about all the training that I have, I came to a big realization that, man, if I stand up every day and say I'm an alcoholic or I struggle with alcohol, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to be an alcoholic, and I'm going to struggle with alcohol for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so that's where Reclaim Sobriety comes back, is not drinking and being miserable and struggling with it, having relapses and all those things. And I love these programs. I love SMART. I love AA. I love Recovery Dharma. And they help you make the transition, but they don't help you stay happy in life as a sober person. They don't give you the tools for that. And that's really what Reclaim Sobriety is all about. Hopefully an entertaining read that gives you a lot of tools that help you get from a mindset of addiction and kind of a bad place to, oh, I'm a sober gladiator. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of being sober, and I've reclaimed that in my life. And then you reclaim all kinds of other stuff too. It just falls up.
How could I got a couple questions for my next question? I got questions before the question, Ken. Man, thank you. First off, because that's hard for people to talk about. But my curiosity is how did a medical card turn into a felony marijuana charge when you have a prescription? If you'd have had a vial of Vicodin in your pocket, or if you'd have had some Lortabs, it would have. I'm so curious about that, of how that turned into something. Georgia's different, maybe, but still medical, and you have a card.
Yeah, and Delta 9 was legal nationwide at the moment. There was no discernible difference between one or the other. When you go to jail, they call you a fish, and there's a damn good reason, right? Because you just got plucked out of the world and put into this weird ass environment that is highly volatile, highly aggressive, strips you of everything that you think you've ever had really, really quickly.
It
Uh,
will, Ken, this is my other question, right? You led right into what I was going to ask you. Ain't it amazing what a night in county will do for you?
it wasn't my first rodeo.
Yeah.
It was my first time in Georgia, and it was the first time that I had been. I mean, I was sitting there, and I was booked all the way in. I had my cot, everything. I was destined for a 2 week stay.
Yeah.
I think what happened. Um, I mean, I think I was illegally searched for sure,
Yep.
right? Questionable if I was illegally detained. I can't find a lawyer that's going to take that case. Right? It's, um, it's an officer's decision if he's going to take you to jail that night or not. And in a small town in Georgia, might be 2 weeks before the judge is going to see you if you're from out of state.
Yeah.
Right. So, um, let them know that whatever amount of money you need to get them to get out that night or that next day is something I'd recommend to anybody in that position, because every minute you're in jail, especially if you're a guy that looks like me, increases your chances dramatically of being there for longer.
Was that your rock bottom moment, you think?
Um, I mean, that was a shitty moment,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't think it was my rock bottom. I think I was so comfortable living on bottom that, you know, um, if
Yeah, I was going to say, like you talk about rock bottom not being a bounce back moment for everyone. That's hurtful. Because some people, when they hit rock bottom, a lot of people like that's their, hot dang, I got to get out of here. But some people get there and they live. Um,
yeah, I mean, my first time in actually like a lockup for any significant amount of time, I was 13, right? By the time I was 13, I'd been arrested 10 times,
yeah.
right? And at 13, I got grand theft auto with possession of a large amount of marijuana. Um, so that it was just a thing that out like to me, that was just another thing that happened. It wasn't a rock bottom. If I had a rock bottom, it was my liver disease. I
Yeah.
mean, that was my rock bottom. But it took me 10 years to get back to top, right? Like that moment of that was the first time that a doctor looked at me and said, if you don't quit drinking today, you're gonna die. Like,
Yeah.
go home and drink and you're gone in 2 years. Right? Or you can quit right now and we can figure this out. You are in a recoverable state, right? I had liver disease. My panels were coming back at the 800-900s. Cirrhosis kicks in, I think, at 1,000, whatever
Yeah.
that number is, right? So I hadn't hit cirrhosis yet. I just had fatty liver disease, alcohol induced, or whatever that,
Yeah.
however you say that word. Um, so for 2 years of 2.5 years of just eating Xanax, my liver's healed, right? But I hate life, miserable.
Yeah.
Had to go through withdrawals of Xanax, right? Because then, that doctor passed away. My next doctor, like, what? How much Xanax he got you on? It's like, he told me to give me Xanax, as much Xanax as I ever needed, as long as I never drank. Right? So, um, detox alcohol, I've done 4 times. I've only had to do Xanax once. Um, not much better.
No.
Not much better is detoxing from Xanax than it was from alcohol. Better for sure, but not much better. Uh, and then just that was back to trying moderation again and doing just, you can do moderation for a couple months. Some people, but not, I can't.
I, um, yeah, I'm with you on that. Get my brain working because I don't drink nowhere near what I used to, and there's weekends now, like every weekend is associated with a drink, right? But there's weekends now that'll go by that like they're having, um, and I think maybe I just have I'm in a different place in my head. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I've dealt with some things. I just don't have that. But you're right. It is for something. I talk to a lot of people, man, and I love people and I love the conversations. Right? He it's one of those things that a lot of people just can't. There's a control when hand to mouth becomes a thing and the socializing, and then I have an episode coming out. I think I just scheduled like mid-November. Chris talks about he went through this whole thing and lost everything because of alcohol, and then came back, lived his whole life, and then said, you know what? He had a moment, and then he was like, I'm going to still have one. It kind of enabled himself to have one, and it set him on another year, 2 year spiral of just absolute craziness because he can't
Yeah, the
control.
shit changes in our brain so quickly once it gets it
Yeah,
again. It's crazy. I think for me, it was more not a rock bottom, but walking out another morning in a position of having something that had happened to me. Um, that doesn't normally happen to me, but when I'm drinking, it does.
yeah,
Right. And that whole weekend, I mean, I was in Podfest, so I was practicing moderation, right, or attempting to, and things got rowdy, and even after that, you get back to the mindset of, I can do anything I want to do, kind of thing, and it's not healthy, it's not productive, and if you have a set of values in your life, it's really challenging to pick up a bottle.
Did you, where were you at with kids, spouse, all those things?
Wife and two kids. My son is 13. He's nonverbal. Um, awesome kid. Taught me more about life than any other person on this planet.
Yeah.
Uh, by leaps and bounds. My daughter's 17. She doesn't like to be mentioned much, so we'll let her live her life. And then my wife, the struggles there are real, man. So we have a great relationship. We've been married. We'll be 18 years this year.
Yes,
She's quite a
congratulations.
bit younger than me. She's about 9 years younger than I am. Um, and she's just amazing in every single way. But he, through this process, and something that I found is that there's a section through recovery for some, not all. I don't know. It's pause,
Yep.
post withdrawal syndrome. What I found out is that when I would get there, that's when I'd always just try this moderation thing, right? Because I was still conflicted with my addiction and all these other things, and it was a really challenging time. And then when you get through that for yourself, what you realize is in your close relationships, you were the problem.
Yep.
Right? Your addiction was the problem. And people think that if you can remove that part of the problem, that everything's better. Knowingly or unknowingly, you've created trauma in your closest relationships. You've not been there for your partner in ways that you should have been throughout this entire time. And I mean, you're going to have to come to terms with that, and you're going to have those open conversations
Yeah.
with your partners.
Yeah.
And it's challenging, man. It's tough, and they're going to be not in the best mental place all the time, and they're going to, you know, potentially blame you for things that you know they were also a part of as well. But uh, the when the thing that causes all the problems goes away, and there's still problems, people get confused and they
Yeah.
start blaming. So be prepared for that. I'm a firm believer in open, honest communication is cures all things. In as far as relationships goes, it will either cure the relationship or sever the relationship, and either one of those things is good. Is better than a relationship.
Yeah. At that point, neither one of them is bad. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, and we're good. I mean, we're really good right now. I'm not going to say that we don't have our bumps.
Yeah.
Right? We can go at it. She's my number one trainer at our boxing school. So,
It's awesome.
I taught her how to fight. So,
Well, it's cool too. And a lot of times, folks like in this situation find, we end up being gym leaders. I was a gym leader. I am a
yeah,
gym leader. It's one of those things. If we take a lot of our life struggles and we just try to get in a position in a place, and life puts us somewhere where we can mentor through our shortcomings and what we consider our failures, and it gives us that platform to be able to mentor. Man, it feels good. And being able to just help spread that and laugh at the dumb stuff, right? And it kind of yeah, man, you've it's like night and day, dude. I was in place work. I grew up around an alcoholic grandfather. different things. So alcohol has been in my life since I was a little bitty kid,
Yeah.
and so I am. And for the folks, because sometimes when you talk to people about chaos in life, folks don't understand it. Right? They're like, I just don't get that because they haven't seen, they don't expose, they don't have those same triggers or,
Yeah.
um,
And, the bizarre thing to me, and this is really bizarre, and it kind of pisses me off too, still. It's not normal to be an addict, but it's also not normal, right? So I would get really angry when I would talk to people and say, well, yeah, but your case isn't normal. And I'm like, but every kid that I grew up with in my neighborhood was dealing with the same stuff,
yeah,
right? So in literally my entire encompassing world was drugs, alcohol, and crime growing up. That's the kind of neighborhood I lived in, right? There was, uh, you know, uh, burlesque clubs in walking distance from my house, right?
yeah,
So, that's the world I grew up in. That's the way I lived. That's all I knew. I assumed that every human on the planet had been pretty severely beaten. Almost everybody had some sexual abuse, and everybody drinks and does drugs, and it's just not that big of a deal. And uh, it's not normal, but it's also very, very common. And if we don't talk about it, then it's going to continue happening, and it's not the best place.
how much of that experience did you get to layer into your book, into the creation of that, of Reclaim Sobriety, the 12 Rounds of Sobriety?
Yeah,
Do we get to hear a lot about just how your experiences led you to that?
yeah. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty easy to ramble along. So
You're
I had to,
saying, hey, I got a large set, so me and you don't. I mean, listen, I'm the same way. I mean, I had a guest on. I had a guest on. Man, look, it was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Because we just kept talking. And I was like, holy crap.
yeah.
The time it got away from us. So yeah, no, I set an alarm so to remind me, like, all right, you got other stuff that you need to go to do.
Thanks, sobriety. What I tried to do was I had to share as much about me as I possibly could. I had to share what I think is the most important, which is the 12 values.
Yeah.
I love a lot of what 12 steps programs do, and I didn't want to demonize those in any way. And I don't want to demonize alcohol at all, right? I don't like that kind of, nobody should ever drink again, that kind of world. I didn't want to do that. Alcohol was there for me sometimes when nobody else was, right? I'm not sure if I'd have kept drinking, I wouldn't be here, but I'm also not sure that I would be here if I didn't have it as well, right?
Yep.
So I was using it to medicate myself, and I just didn't know any better. Um, so I took the 12 core values that we have in our gem, I assimilated them to the 12 steps inside the AA program as best as I could. There's some things that I just don't agree with. I do not agree with turning it over to God.
Yeah.
Right? I believe God is the creator, but I don't believe that He has any kind of stake in my life on a daily basis, and I don't think that I can turn it over to Him. So I had to be in control of it. Right? I love smart recovery because it's self management, but it has this concept of moderation is it's your deal and you do what you want to do. That failed me. Um, so I wanted to take the values and help share them with other people in each one of those. And I call those rounds. We don't call them chapters in the book. So we have 12 rounds. We start
Yes.
with the weigh-in, which is your self check-in. We talk some stories about how I've done that, and it's layered, right? You don't check in just one day like, oh, I'm gonna change everything today. You have to check in multiple times. We go through each one of the core values, and it's a personal story about myself. I try to make it as entertaining as possible, and then we do the press release at the end, right? And so if you're gonna take a fight, you do your weigh in, you do your 12 rounds, and you do your press conference at the end, and hopefully you make it to the end successful, and you get to share your stories with the world and help other people through this journey, and that's what I tried to do inside the book. Hopefully, there's a bucket of tools that somebody can walk away with, and maybe they're just they're all the same tools, right? We all had coaches, we've all had therapy, we've all done a lot of things, and maybe I just say it a little different than you've heard it before, and it sticks with you, right? So, um, I the book's not released yet. The feedback that I've gotten so far is phenomenal. So, which is strange for me. I don't put my work out in this way. So that's what the book's all about.
That's all right, man. Like, listen, some people are writers and it becomes that therapy. Some people are videos. I enjoy the conversation of just kind of putting it out there, and it allows me to create some social and some blog and do some of the digital footprint stuff that I enjoy. But I think we all are able to out our shortcomings through different venues. Some people do art and they draw. There's a
Yeah, so
lot of
the writing for me, and this goes right into the entire thing. I'm like you. I was drinking from a very young age. When I say
yeah,
very young, I'm saying 3, right? I mean,
yeah,
I was probably drinking a beer a day by the age of 3.
wow,
And then when I was 7, was the first time I got into some significant trouble, right? I had turned violent. Um, I was in a violent world,
yeah,
but I had turned violent and I'd gotten some trouble. So this was my first time that I had started going to the therapist at 7. And the therapist's rule was you got to write a page a day, right? So every day before you go to bed, I just want you to write, just brain dump write. And uh, I'm wildly dyslexic, very, very dyslexic. And my mother is phenomenal in a lot of ways, but she's also had her own PTSD and her own struggles and her own
yeah,
traumas. But one thing she always did was advocate for me to communicate in the way that I needed to communicate in. So she
yeah,
fought the school somehow. And I mean, we're talking 1982, 1983. Somehow I get a brother word processor in my bedroom,
yeah.
right? So now I can type everything. I don't have to worry about spelling. I don't have to worry about all those things. I got word correction and all that stuff. And that's how it got started for me. And that's really also part of the reason I love technology so much, because
Yeah.
it's been that crutch for me to overcome my neurodivergency. I get to use technology to overcome that and
Yeah.
participate in things with other people in the way that I don't think I would be able to.
No, that's that. And yeah, the stuff that the AI stuff absolutely helps elevate, your conversation. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I got great ideas in my head. I just don't know how to put them in words. And Chat GPT and some of the new AI stuff really helps, do that. Did
Absolutely.
we touched on something? And if it's, um, we can go around it or we can go through it. But
We go through it.
yeah, you like, listen, man, you had a lot going on as a young kid. Where does it come from? Where does this, we're drinking at 3, we're in trouble at 7. Is this, and there's a lot going on in your home life. If there was what's that story? What is what is that?
Yeah. So my mother, you know, God bless her. She's still here with us. She's in her 70s, and she's not quite as ornery as she used to be. She grew up with a stepfather that was, a drunk and sexually abusive and all those things. So when she was pregnant with me, she was homeless, and she got a job at my cousin's bar, and my cousins raised enough money for her to for her to rent the apartment above that bar. Right. So I lived in the bar. Like, I was born living in a bar.
Yep.
And that's my first place that I came home to. She met my stepfather when I was probably 1 at that bar. He was a local baker, union baker, right? Works his shifts and drinks his beer and sleeps for 8 hours, right? So you pull an 8 hour shift, you drink for 8 hours, you sleep for 8 hours. That's on the weekends, you pour concrete for extra money. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Um, Good guy. He meant well. You know, was what he was, right? He was a good provider for the family, um, but he was an alcoholic at the highest level. So, uh, it starts with, "Hey, Kenny, go get me a beer," and I
Yep.
go get a beer, right? "Hey, can I have a drink?" "Yep, sure, not a problem." My mom was a bartender. My dad was a baker, and I had 3 stepbrothers and a stepsister um, that were also living part time in another violent community, right? So they would come over, and that'd be a whole other thing. So my mom ended up doing pretty well at the bar. Literally, we have a full wet bar in my house, right? By the time I'm 10 years old, full on beer tap, keg flowing nonstop. And, it was not a uncommon practice to, 3 or 4 in the morning, when the stepdad was on second shift and mom was working at the bar, for 20 people to show up at the house.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a party time until it's not. So it's the environment I grew up in, and I didn't know any different. In the book, I don't know where I got this quote. Um, in a house of criminals, a child that's not a criminal feels guilty.
Yeah.
Right. So you fall into line and you do the thing that everybody else is doing. You don't know any better, especially at that age. So, and then, the punishment for a 13-year-old boy in the 80s for stealing a car, punishment for that isn't as good as the accolades you get in the community.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're cool shit. You're
so
like,
yeah. Especially the 80s, I mean, yeah.
It was the negative was rewarded in such a weird way. That it gave you more clout in that community. The more trouble you got into, the more clout you.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I man, I never met your real dad. If I heard you right,
no, I just found out actually. Found out this year that he passed away.
Yeah.
I'd never met him. He was in court. My adoption went through several months before I got arrested for grand theft. So my name changed to Kenny Cox then, and then I get arrested, and I'm on probation until I was 18. But he evidently was at court. So I've been in the same room with him at least once, but that's all I know. And then he signed his rights over, but they never introduced me or anything like that. And I just found out, I guess, sometime last year that he passed away.
So no effort on his part to ever connect or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or not to my knowledge.
Yeah. I think it screws with us a little more. I think I've never met my dad either. I think in people that have that, they don't have friends like these conversations are easy for you and me because I'm like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, oh yeah. Now you'll hear about some of my content. My grandfather was arrested for DUI on a tractor. So I was told when I did some comedy the other night. I always try to do some comedy, and I was thanking the guy for like just helping me with my mental health because doing comedy is fun, and then I use it in my speaking and just try to layer in comedy. And I was thinking, and I had worked on some material that I wanted to close my stuff with. And man, I was reading it on the stage and the mic, and I had to step back, and I was like, "Oh, where's this emotion coming from?" You know what I mean? And I came home and I'd share my experiences with my kids, 12 and 15. So we just try to like. Now they kind of know. I'm teaching them more about what my upbringing was and why we do things the way that we do. And I told them, I was like, guys, I got emotional. I don't know where it came from. And I said, I was just reading. And like, I probably shouldn't have tried to been serious in the comedy session. So that was a little bit on me. But
Yeah.
But it helped me work through that part of it. But folks that are, we don't realize how many people out there that assimilate to us. So those folks that are out there that are listening right now, man, you're not alone. As crazy as you think your life is, it's two dudes live a crazy one themselves. And the other thing is the folks, I don't know where you are with your wife, but my wife mom and dad was in the house and she went to college and she's a lawyer and all those things. And she had normalcy, what is considered normalcy. In my world, I thought this was my version of normal. And, me and my mom, we kind of went round back and forth a little bit to where she said, well, this is the way it was. And I'm like, no, this is the way it was for us. And I worked hard to kind of get her to not, give it as much affirmation as it should. It's okay to call it BS. And she has it, and it's okay, but she has her own experience, like what you said with because my mom's back in their 70s as well. So I'm thinking, all right, I understand the times, I understand the error, man, but you
on your emotions moment there, I think it takes a huge amount of growth to be able to even talk about this stuff. And
Oh,
on a stage is really hard.
yeah.
Uh, I had a conversation with my wife, and I'm working on a couple 1 hours and
Yeah.
a dozen 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
Um, and I something very simpler happened to me, and I started writing something. I started getting angry about it. I got angry, and I told my wife, like, and we both have to do this. We both have to move past. We can't be angry at it anymore,
Yep.
right? We have to let it go, and it can't hold power over us. It can't continue. It can't keep winning,
Mm-mm.
right? And if we are still mad at the addiction, we're mad about the times, then today we're gonna let that keep winning, and that's freaking horrible, man. Like really, really bad. Like you
Yep.
cannot let this thing that happened to you that's negative in the past not let you have an amazing future,
Yeah.
right? We live in a country that, you know, second chance, right? Like we get so many chances and so many opportunities to pick ourselves up and do whatever we want to do. And like in this day and world, it's just an amazing place to be.
Forward thinking. And that's what I said to myself on the ride home because I was talking to myself. If you drove up, you'd be like, that dude's crazy. Because I was like, Jeff, where did this come from? Why are you doing this? And I kept telling myself, I'm like, hey man, just keep forward thinking. Like, don't worry, hey, that was an emotional moment for you. And then when I got home, I told my kids, I was like, you know what? I was actually really proud of me. I'm always proud of Ken. I'm proud of my kids. I'm proud of my wife. I'm proud of the things I said. But when I was up there talking, I had a good moment of reflection. I was like, man, you know what? I was really proud of me. So I think I got a little bit just emotional on things that we've accomplished, right? And things that I personally accomplished, and just to be up on that stage and have that feeling. It wasn't like it was a sold house or any, it was a crowd, but it wasn't the biggest crowd I've spoken in front of. You were talking about your wife a little bit, of your kids. What role did building your relationship with your wife, your kids, especially because we talked a little bit about your wife. What about that relationship with them and the role they played in your recovery?
Yeah. So, you start by doing it for them,
Yeah.
I think, right? And then what you have to come to the realization is you have to do it for you so that you can do things for them. And that's challenging. Yeah, I think, for me, they were there for me the best they could be. Um, when my wife and I met, I was, 30, she was 20. Um, she had lied to get in the bar that I was working in. Partied hard, man. Like, we partied really hard for that year when we first met. And then we started dating the next year and we partied really hard then. We partied really hard for 2 years together. And then she got pregnant, right? So, and then she didn't quit, but she slowed down, right? She didn't drink while she was pregnant. We had our daughter, amazing kid, across the board. She's phenomenal. Um, through all that, I'm still building the business, right? Like, my competition is insane in my daily job, right? I compete against Microsoft and Amazon. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's my competition. It's insane. So, um, I got to hide under the guise of, hey, I got to take this client out tonight for happy hour. I got to close this deal. I got to do this. Um, she's at home with the kids, and damn me, I thought my job was to provide the money for the family.
Yeah.
As long as the bills were paid, that my job was anything above my bills being paid, the kids having shoes and food, my job was done. Right, everything else was for me. So, which is a horrible way to look at it. That's how I was raised, right? The guy pays the bills and
Yeah.
takes care of all that stuff, and outside of that, it's her job to do everything else, which is just a bizarre way to do it. So she was there. She didn't leave me. She probably should have, um, but she was there the whole time. My kids, I don't know if they knew what was going on. Right? It was their fucking normal.
Yeah.
Right? Like as shitty as that is, right? It was their normal. So now, and they ask me now, why do you do this? Why do you do that? I just tell them, well, if I can teach you one thing in this existence, is that we are so fortunate to live in this country and be able to have the opportunity to execute on the things that we want to execute on. Right? That is an opportunity that not everybody in this world gets. Uh, and if I don't show you that I'm going to go after the things that I want on a regular, like on a daily basis, then I think that that's probably the biggest failure that I can do for you. So that's what I'm doing in my sobriety. I'm going to try to teach my children through and everybody else through example of push for the things you want to do, and the norms of I'm also a business guy, but all the business guys out there in the world will tell you, not all of them, but a lot of them will tell you, niche down, niche down, niche down, be this one thing to the world, be this one thing to the world. And I'm here to say, man, you're not one thing, and that's okay. And you can have a book about business, and you can have a book about addiction, and you can go off and do this other thing if you want to. And we live in this place that gives you that opportunity, and I think it would be a sin to not take it. So,
How old are your kids now, Kim? I think you may answer.
17 and 13.
13, 13. Yeah. We're not too far off kids age-wise. I'm 12 and 15 as we're recording this. What is speak to that person who's like, I'm gonna cut this guy off because he hasn't gave me any tips. What's someone, how can someone start to shift the way they see themselves while battling it with?
Yeah, and this is the simplest thing that you can do besides meditation or any of those other things. And I think a lot of men are going to feel weird doing this. They, you might even think that it's a lie to yourself, but I think it's really important every single day, look yourself in the mirror, relax, take some time, and remind yourself that I love and respect you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find that love and respect for yourself, and then you can do anything.
My wife told we're sitting one time and we're talking a couple years ago, and my daughter had said, and I had to get right with this. And the advice that you just gave, Ken, is that, folks, we don't do that enough. No one's going to be if you're not cheering for yourself, no one's going to be cheering it louder than you. You need to be your number one fan. Those are things that say, my wife put it to my daughter, and they were talking about how we've had relationships and this, that, and the other. And she said, she goes, you're going to find a lot of love, but none of it's going to work until you learn to love yourself first.
Beautiful.
Man, it was good. Like, and my daughter was probably 9 or 10 at the time, right? And I'm sitting over there going, oh, that's going, right? I'm crazy content, because that was a big moment. And folks, I'm telling you, for you guys who are listening out there, is if you listen to a couple episodes, the recent ones that are going to, like right before this one, we talk a lot about forgiving yourself and that superpower, how hard that is. And I dealt with a lot of guilt and shame and all this, but once I was like, I just said, you know what, forgive all that. It was like a whole new path opened up. Great advice, man. I'm with you on that, but you all also say this, and I want to hear from you on this one, is it's not always easy. And when you're going through these moments, what we talked about, that trying to negotiate with that inner moderation. What's some other challenges you faced while rebuilding?
Yeah. So, I can't talk highly enough about embedding a set of core values into yourself.
Yeah.
The way you do that, start with by saying, I love and respect you. Right. And I did not love and respect myself. I did not like me. I did not like the human that I was. I didn't like that. I only had two emotions, happy and angry. Right.
Yeah.
Those were, and it was on the extreme sides of both of them. So the world just got these, couple versions of me: party Ken, angry Ken, or happy Ken. Right. There was no other place, and I didn't get to know myself at all. And it was really, really challenging. So, that's the first one, and setting a core values. And there's a book that I read that helped me tremendously, and it's The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
And if you can't forgive yourself for whatever reason, like if you do that practice for months and you're just looking in the mirror and you're like, man, this is a lie. I'm lying to myself. Ken's an idiot. I don't love and respect myself. This is not helping. If you can't get there, then my next thing is you've got some trauma that you got to uncover, therapy, all those things. I'm a huge fan of EMDR. I have very few links on my website, Reclaim Sobriety, but one of them is a link.
Tell everybody. Tell everybody what it means.
I don't know what the word stands for, but it's eye movement, eye desensitization, or something like that. But you simulate this REM sleep kind of eye movement through back and forth motion, and I've done about 100 or 150 EMDR sessions.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I didn't know what that one was either.
So basically you have all these scenarios that have happened in your life, and you have all these beliefs about, I had toxic beliefs about what a man was.
Yeah.
Right. I did, right? Man pays the bills and does whatever he wants. He's a womanizer. He can fight, and he drives fast, and he's aggressive. I had to reframe so many things about how I viewed the world. I also had to reframe about some of the traumas that I had that they're not currently happening, right? So what you do when you're an addict is you have a trauma, it leaves a scar inside your body or your brain, and you use your substance to not process it, right? So you don't even have to deal with the emotions. You don't have to deal with them at all. EMDR helps that dramatically. If I don't have a lot of experience on what a normal life would be, because I had a substance in my life all day, every day for decades. But quitting drinking is one thing, quitting your substance is one thing, learning how to deal with your fucking emotions.
Yeah.
It's a whole other ball game, man. Like, and that's what you got to do.
Sober Ken having to deal with sober Ken.
Yeah, and being angry and being sad. And sad was, learning how to be sad without a drink.
Yeah.
Hard. Like, you have to learn how to do all those things again, right? You've got, a whole year of firsts again. First Christmas without drinking, New Year's without drinking, first everything without drinking again. And, I had to do my first time in jail without drinking again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just really challenging, and you have this whole world of emotions that you have to figure out how to deal with, and you don't have, what I called alcohol was my best friend, right? And I had to figure out how to bring him out back and shoot him.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
Yeah. I have, it's hard to put in words, because I do live what is my wife's standards of normal life now. And I'm a dad, and I'm present, and I'm all those things. And I try to speak to that. And that's why we're here. Is there's kids out there right now, I'm telling you, and you know this as good as I'm sitting here. There's kids out there that are absolutely going through this. And folks, you're going to listen to this, you're going to hear this, you're going to be curious about it. Just know that that's going on in your community. I thought, Ken, because I went through it and I came out of it, hell, if my dumb self can get out of it, then it's no longer a problem. It's worse. They've strained all.
It's worse today.
Yeah, they're throwing a crap ton of money, and it's the problems is we still you would think in our time. I grew up rural. We didn't I didn't have, there was a time I could say we didn't have running water, but just and we used the bathroom in an outhouse, right? So, but I didn't go to bed hungry. I dealt with gunfire over my head through my grandfather sometimes, or he would shoot the place up and do crazy things and all those things. But I didn't go to bed hungry. And that was something that hurt. Like we have that now. Like there's an issue, and there's still in our there's fathers and parents, and there's a lot of absence. Growing up like I did, the latchkey era, I could say easily I was a latchkey kid, but it was a little bit different. I didn't have the violence of video games that was unattended. I played Super Mario Brothers, right?
Correct.
And then when those some of the first person shooting games come along, I was older, but the influence sometimes of just what kids are doing when adults aren't around is different, way different from mine and your time. Um,
Well, there,
there,
something that we didn't have that I've studied a little bit in the last several years, and honestly, I've studied this more for the racism side of it than anything else, is micro traumas, right? Once I learned what trauma did to the brain, and then I started realizing what micro traumas were, and these kids are, like it or not, seeing a person shot up on a video game,
yeah,
it's a micro trauma.
yeah.
Right? You're seeing that, you're desensitizing yourself every single time. So I think our youth has a lot of challenges ahead of them.
We call it in the public safety military world. I came out of public safety years ago. It's a moral injury is we're equating. It's not quite PTSD, but our witnesses stuff is you'll hear a lot of folks say, well, police officers knew that job when they got into it. No,
Right.
I'll tell you, no, they didn't. Yeah,
They
because
had good intentions when they got
yeah,
into it.
yeah, they're. I want to go help people. But the things that they deal with every day and the societal levels and some of the, like, the man, take what you've done and add guns into it, right? Yeah, you take a lot of the stuff, but then we've amplified a lot of that, man. And I hope hope folks hear this. I had the opportunity to become a dad, right? And I was scared to death that I was going to screw that up because of me. Man, you want to I was a nervous wreck, and as time went on, I really, I have this thing. I talk about breaking curses and speak on breaking curses and rebuilding your family tree. And just because what happened, you don't have to do that. And as my kids got older, I'm like, hey, I'm building you different. You're being built different. You're not going to, these are the things that I dealt with. This is why you don't deal with that. We had a conversation a couple nights ago. Like, this is why, well, you don't have to, this is what I dealt with coming up. You don't have to deal with that. Um, when is your book coming out?
So right now until November 19th.
Oh man. So, all right.
And if you go to reclaimsobriety.com today, you put in your email address, you get a free copy. That goes away on November 19th.
All right.
Right.
Make
So
sure
right
yep.
until then, it's free for anybody that goes there and checks it out. The PDF version, obviously.
Yep.
So, but November 19th, it's going to hit the shelves and be off to the races, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man. Best way to connect with you, Ken? How do you do your website or Instagram? What's your
So to learn more about Reclaim Sobriety, the book, just reclaimsobriety.com. If you want to know more about me personally, kencox.com is my website.
Yeah.
I do some blogging there occasionally, but then that'll link to all my different socials, and I kind of have slightly different playgrounds in each of these different social media platforms that I play on. And I'm not I don't take it all that seriously. I just try to have a good time and share things that I think are neat when they're up there. But
yeah, no, I'll make sure all that's going. We'll make sure that we publish all that, and then I'll get with you on a couple other things. But I don't think an hour or 45 minutes ish, 50 minutes ish. I don't think it does us justice, and I think it's going to create a lasting friendship and a conversation that you and I can have. I'd love to talk to you post book to see how that's going. And anything that me and my team can do to help elevate you and stuff, man. But I'm a conversation guy, and man, I tell you, you never know when you say a couple strangers you're going to meet on a podcast platform, and you show up, and man, I tell you, you are a beacon of hope, and you're a testament to those folks that are listening out there that think you can't make a change or you can't be different or you can't that you're too far in. Ken's a living proof that you can take action today and change your life and change it, and also change it to be able to help others. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. I
All
appreciate it,
right.
Jeff.
Thank you, Ken.
Take care.